And good afternoon. This is Kathleen Smith with ClearedJobs.Net, and we have another edition of our recruiter panels, opportunities for you to meet recruiters who are actively searching for security cleared candidates and are here to answer some of your questions about what it is like to be a recruiter in this space and what they are actually looking for. Both Vanessa Sullivan and Jo Weech will be joining us at our Cleared Job Fair this Thursday. Next week. Sorry, I've got my days confused. As everyone knows, we're in the midst of the pandemic. We've got Blur's Day going on. We are waiting for another recruiter who's having some technical difficulty to join us, so you'll have another person joining us very quickly. So let's kick it off. I'm going to have Vanessa Sullivan first start telling us a little bit about herself, and then we'll go on to our next question. Vanessa, can you unmute yourself?
Apologize about that. Vanessa Sullivan, I work for AEVEX Aerospace. I've been with the company for going on 5 years now. We used to be CSG Solutions. We merged with AEVEX Aerospace. And we hire a lot of Intel analysts, pilot A29, simulator instructors, UAV crew chiefs. It's all in the airspace realm, basically, and to provide an end-to-end service to the customer.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Vanessa. Then we'll move on to Jo Weech. Jo, tell us a little bit more about you and what you are recruiting for.
Thank you, Kathleen. I have the privilege of serving as head of talent for Teracore. We are a service-disabled, veteran-owned company that we have hit 19 years this year, and we have the ability to serve many federal contracts, and we are always looking for people with Oracle federal financials and also people who have a cybersecurity background and those skill sets. And we're really looking forward to participating in the job fair on Thursday. And hopefully we'll be able to meet many people that we will then be able to either employ or pipeline for jobs that are coming up over the next several months.
Great. Thank you, Jo. And we now have Michael Barnum joining us. Michael, thanks so much. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you're hiring for?
Sure. So I support Raytheon Intelligence and Space, and we do look for various skill sets, but my team is on the operations side. So everything from supply chain, manufacturing, and security operations. So cybersecurity, industrial security. I've been with RIS. Well, we've been RIS for a year, but I've been with Raytheon family for 3 years. So most of our security roles do require clearances, and we'll be attending the event later next week as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for joining us today. So let's kick it off with our first question. And what I always find very interesting is that job seekers tend to think that recruiters don't have a busy day, and they tend to think that recruiters just do one thing during the day. So Vanessa, can you sort of tell us exactly what is your typical day like and what soaks up all of your time?
My day usually consists of reviewing resumes, conducting phone screenings with the candidates, collaborating with the hiring managers, going through active and passive candidates. And basically most of my time is spent on various databases searching for the candidates that are a fit, because a lot of our positions are so specific and fall into such a small niche that it's hard to find the right candidate sometimes. And that's what most of my time is sucked up by, I guess.
Great, thank you so much. So Michael, you have some interesting, things that you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your day is like and what sucks up most of your time?
Sure. I'd say the majority of my day is talking to candidates or talking to managers, worrying about workforce needs, where we need to be, whether certain teams are building out their bench or we have replacements. So I try to be as strategic as possible about why we're filling a role, making sure we have the right role. But ultimately, my goal at the end of the day is to help make the right connections for the right candidates for the right roles. A lot of very specific requirements that we have. So there's definitely some sourcing and some resumes involved in my day as well.
Sounds great. And Jo, can you tell us a little bit more about your day and what sucks up most of your time?
That is really an excellent question. I would say that it's one thing to do the strategy. We have a team and we always do the divide and conquer so that we're all not fishing in the same ponds, but that we're all sourcing from different places, and then fielding inquiries from, hiring managers to the business development team, and then being able to respond to different things that happen with the candidates. They are all at different stages, of the process, and ensuring that there's smooth transition and ensuring that they make it to all of their interviews on time, and that we are able to then work on being able to optimize the process. We recently acquired a greenhouse for our applicant tracking system, so that's helping us to be able to actually craft the questions that will be asked of each candidate, which takes time because we have to read through the entire job description. So it's rewriting technical position descriptions into a job description that people will want to read, and then being able to ask certain basic questions of every single candidate to ensure we have a more equitable hiring process. And so I would say that from sun up to sundown, it also includes a lot of filling out of spreadsheets to be able to show the candidate flow for specific projects, and being able to create slide decks, each week to be able to report on our progress. And sometimes we get to eat.
It's always good to hear you get to eat. So
Yes.
We all have been working in a new environment. We've all been working in a new normal. So I know each one of us individually, family, corporate wise, or whatever, has had to deal with COVID and what that has restricted our life. But I want to really delve a little bit deeper in and have each one of you sort of talk about how recruiting has really changed due to COVID. So Michael, do you want to kick us off with that? Whoops, Michael, sorry. Yeah, no problem.
So that's one of the changes, a lot of virtual stuff, getting used to technology. But that would be the biggest change in recruitment, is there's so much more virtual now. There's a lot less shaking hands. Recruiters are typically people persons, and they want to talk to people. They want to meet people. They want to get a sense of them. So you've got virtual career fairs, a lot more Zoom, where technology used to be a nice to have in the interviewing world. It's basically mandated now to be successful. And then a lot of roles that used to be on site may be able to be remote now. So it opens up where you can recruit, who you can recruit, less relocation. But also the biggest for me in terms of a candidate experience is understanding that candidates are going through a difficult time too. So it's not just, it's harder for us to make decisions, but we're making offers off of video interviews and phone interviews. So we're making investments in people without even meeting them, and we're asking them to accept a job without them meeting us. So understanding that landscape has been very big to being successful in communicating both hiring managers and candidates what this world looks like and that we can still move forward.
Wonderful. Great. So Jo, what have you really noticed as something being different due to COVID?
Well, I think that the thing that I've enjoyed the most is the aspect of virtual job fairs, because it used to be that people would have to get in their car and they'd have to drive, they'd have to wear their tie or whatever to show up face to face, and it took them a lot of time off of their projects. And now that we have this virtually, it's really great because you can. I was telling someone yesterday who was a silver medalist for one of our jobs that her resume is very stellar, so she should register, for the job fair. And then even if she's not able to attend, that resume is still going to go to the recruiters. And so it's a win for candidates, I think, in this job market. But I also think that there's a lot more availability of people to have conversations and to be able to take those breaks. And I think that we're all being more transparent. So I think that it's a far more personable process than what we experienced pre-pandemic.
Wonderful. And Vanessa, I know that you, as everyone else, has had to deal with different things. What have you seen changed as far as recruiting, or if you have anything about job search?
I'm going to follow on with what Michael and Jo said. Obviously, we are now working remote. We're actually going back in the office here next week, but that will be the first time in about 12 months. Initially, when back in April of last year, we did notice some of the contracts slowing down the hiring. There was start dates being pushed and so forth. But at this point now, everything's pretty much back to normal and everything has run pretty smoothly. And I think this has just showed that we are able to, still find candidates and hire candidates, even though it's all virtual.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Yeah, I think that we can all sort of say that while it has not been a very easy or pleasant 14 months dealing with the pandemic, we actually have some tools that we're better using, even though in the beginning, all of us had to get used to Zoom and all of the various different virtual formats. But tools are something that job seekers have also had to become more adept at. Before, we just had one or two tools that we use for job search. Now we have so many different tools. So, Jo, can you just tell us a little bit more about what are some of the tools that job seekers need to get a handle of now to apply and interview for jobs?
Well, that's the one great thing that has come out of the pandemic is the ability to have tools that were never before created. For example, HireTool provides a tool for recruiters on how to optimize finding people for their jobs. And then they decided to reverse engineer that. And now they have a tool called JobSeer.ai. So that's JobSeer.ai. And it actually helps job seekers to actually find us and our jobs. So the way that it works is that you just upload your resume, and then you are able to go in and be able to find out when you're like on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, what percentage of a match you are for that job. And they'll even give you a list of here are the keywords you have from this job description, and here are the ones you're missing. So if you have those skills, but they're not on your resume, then you can revamp your resume. And it helps job seekers to know if they're a 63% match, maybe that's not going to be a job they should apply to. But if they're like an 80% match or 90% match, maybe that would be a really great job for them to apply to. So it really streamlines the whole job search process for job seekers, and it's just a free Chrome extension. So I think that's really great. And then I think that job seekers are learning how to use things like resumeworded.com, jobscan.co. You just upload your resume into these and along with the job descriptions, and it will also tell you what you're missing in terms of the skill sets that maybe you don't have the right keywords, if you have a synonym for it. So then you can change it, because everyone knows that you should be customizing your resume for every job that you apply to.
Wonderful. So, Michael, what are some of the tools that you've really seen job seekers get a handle on during the pandemic, or as we've been experiencing, what are some of the tools that we think we have a handle on, but we really don't have a handle on? Unmute.
Getting used to the virtual. That's video interviewing tools, making sure really that you can practice that. It's okay to record yourself talking to yourself and practice video interviewing. You never know how you come off. So getting more comfortable for that, or having a backup plan like a phone instead of a camera. But virtual career fairs, sometimes you have limited exposure to talk to recruiters. You have limited time to talk to hiring managers. So being clear and transparent there. And as was mentioned, using tools to help your resume, looking at the job description, being realistic with yourself. How do you match up to the job that you say you want, that you're qualified for? Review it, utilize tools. And realistically, I would say every opportunity you see in the virtual career fair world, take advantage of it. If it's not the exact right fair for you, it's going to be great practice at the very least to have conversations. And networking is never going to go out of style. So if you have the opportunity to jump onto some sort of virtual coffee chat, virtual career fair, I would suggest doing it and becoming great with it and being comfortable interviewing online, interviewing in the media space, because those are going to continue even after the pandemic is over.
So, Michael, I'm going to keep the focus on you right now because you dovetailed perfectly into our next question, which is, there are so many virtual events. And when we polled recruiters and employers over the last few months, we asked them, would they be participating in virtual events? And more than 48% said that they would be participating in virtual events. So, do you see virtual events staying as part of your overall recruiting strategy? And how do they play? I mean, you gave a really good point there that it's a good opportunity for practice, but do you see Raytheon or other employers in our space continuing to do virtual events past when we can do in-person events again?
Absolutely. I think in-person events will come back just because there's something about meeting someone in person that's always going to have a little edge over a virtual chat. But the cost, the convenience, the ability to bring together a wide array of candidates, a wide array of hiring managers and decision makers, and it's really unmatched. So in all fields, I see the virtual events are going to continue. At least that's what I believe. It's so much more convenient for a lot of people. As Jo said, you don't need to pull candidates from a commute, from a lunch, all the way to an event. They can simply take a break, head out, see what they want to see. But when I can have California managers talking to candidates in Maine and Florida candidates talking to managers in Texas all in the same day, it really paves the way for some success for both candidate and employer. So I really think they're going to stick around in a big way. And they forced innovation in different types of virtual events too. So that's going to continue to grow and develop as well. So that's going to be exciting. It's not just chat rooms. You can do virtual events like this, virtual career fairs. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation and for these types of events to grow and be even more successful.
Great, thank you. So Vanessa and Jo, I'm just going to have you pipe in on this as well. Vanessa, you'll be first, but anything else you want to add about the virtual events and how they're going to stay part of your recruiting strategy?
I think Michael hit the nail on the head there. I do believe they're going to stay. Like he said, it is not the same as meeting somebody in person. It is obviously a little bit more personal, but just being able to, reach so many people all over the US, there's nothing that compares to it. So I do believe that they are going to stay.
Great. So, Jo, both Michael and Vanessa have sort of covered it, but I'm sure you've got a different perspective on this as well. From you're a different size employer, maybe more of a mid-size, small to mid-sized employer. Do you still see this as virtual events being part of your overall recruiting strategy?
Absolutely. And I actually have a tip for the job seekers who are coming to these virtual events. That thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lift up your laptop. Mine's sitting on a hat box. I actually was using a former Amazon box, before I got this hat box to put my laptop on, because you want to be able to look directly across from the camera. Now, yes, I have the ring light, I have the external camera, I've got a professional microphone, but I'm literally just doing this with a $14.99 lamp from Walmart that's, illuminating. And the other thing is that people make the mistake of looking at the person's face on the screen, but then how you appear to the other person is that you're looking down. So it's odd, but you're going to have to look directly at that little green dot and talk to it, which is going to be uncomfortable, but I recommend practicing it. And to Michael's point, you can just get on a Google Meet by yourself and record yourself and see how you appear. And that way you can have a lot more confidence when you go into these virtual job fairs. And as you can see, I don't use a Zoom background. I just have an actual physical screen behind me so that I can just completely eliminate anything back there that might be very personal to me, or that might be something that could be where someone swipes left on me because they didn't like my artwork or they didn't like my taste in whatever I had. So I always recommend having a neutral background as well, so that it can just be the focus on you and your qualifications.
That's some really great advice there, because I know that when we started doing all of these Zoom events and Zoom interviews, we were seeing everyone's background. And then we were getting into the, hey, look, what kind of funky background can I have? And I know that anytime somebody did a Zoom virtual background, it made me dizzy. So that, as you said, was distracting. So if you're in an interview, if you're in a virtual job fair, if you're in an interview with an employer, take Jo's advice, just very plain background. Really, now even Jo has me trained. I have to focus on the little white light on my laptop, but versus mine's white, not green. So there are all these little tips, and I really think that this is going to make the overall recruiting process better, and it's going to make the job search process better. So let's move on to our next question, which is what part of the job negotiation process do job seekers tend to mess up more frequently? So when I'm talking about the job negotiation process, I'm really talking about the initial inquiry, the tech interview, the follow-up, the lack of follow-up, the face-to-face interview. What happens, there's got to be one choke point where job seekers really mess up all the time. So Vanessa, let's take this over to you first. And what is the one place that you see job seekers mess up most frequently?
I think it's the hiring interview, to be honest with you. A lot of times they are not able to speak on what is on their resume. So I think just taking some time to, read over your resume, and I know it sounds crazy because you should know what's on there. Just being able to speak on your experience and going more into detail on what you've done, especially if it's a very technical role, that's very important. And I've seen a lot of candidates kind of, not make the hiring interview successful because of that.
That's wonderful. So Jo, what area of the overall process do you see most job seekers just choke out?
I think that really in the last 6 to 8 months, the expectations for compensation haven't changed, but the total economy has. And so there is that expectation that they should be continually getting more and more salary, and it may not necessarily be the case. I have one particular role where every person who's applied is at $165,000, and we're not going to be anywhere near that amount. So I think it's a matter of realizing that there are changes, to the way that the compensation is being structured now. Many companies have been affected by the different ramifications of, quarantining and the pandemic in general. So I think that it's good to be able to adjust and your expectations for salary and actually think about what is the minimum that you really need to be able to thrive, in your next role if you have been previously unemployed. And if you're looking at another role as a lateral transfer, to be prepared that maybe contracts, even if it's one that you had previously worked on, maybe the company that won the bid may not have won it at the same rate that your current company has. So it's just a matter of adjusting expectations and being willing, to compromise. But you have to have that conversation with yourself prior to, that final step of negotiating your offer.
Wonderful. And Michael, let's make sure you're on. There you are. Yes. And I'm just going to say something because we had a comment, and I'm not putting you on point, but no, Michael is not experiencing an earthquake. He has been, he was not able to access through his computer. We've tried several times. So being resourceful as he is, like all of us need to be during this time, he's calling in on his phone. So
Well, I'm sorry if I'm giving anyone a tough time. I just couldn't hold my arm up much longer, so I'm veteran. But Joe, you are speaking my language in working with candidates and expectation management. But as far as the candidate view, I think a lot of candidates don't think through necessarily what they're really looking for. So I always tell candidates to be transparent in their communication about their goals, about their compensation. It is a two-way interview. It's not necessarily just us looking at you, but it's you looking at us too. So we have a need. Work has to be done. Candidates, I think, should have a short-term and a long-term idea of what they're looking for to make sure this meets their needs as much as we can provide for them. And then as far as like a small detail, there are a lot of candidates who will apply and based off the title say, I can do that. But making sure that you really review the job description before an interview. Just as if it's fair game to ask about your resume that Vanessa had mentioned, it's also fair for a manager to go down the job description that you applied to and to discuss what about this, what about XYZ, experience with RMF or this recruiting language, things like that. So making sure that you understand it's a two-way street. We're going to ask you questions based on your application. But we should be prepared for questions as well. So making sure you're thinking through the move. If you apply to a role in California that's going to cause you to relocate, look at the cost of living. Look at what that's going to be prior to going down the path of a job offer. There's a lot of work that goes into that. So if it's ultimately not going to be a good fit, let's do as much of that forethought as we can before we get too far down and take that opportunity from another candidate or delay the process for us getting that filled or you finding the right role.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Michael. So I'm going to delve down into one tool only because a tool or a process is writing a resume. We did a survey of job seekers and more than 35% of them said the most difficult part of job search for them is crafting a resume. And many job seekers don't realize that when they're crafting a resume, they're actually crafting a resume, continually customizing it. So what are some tips that we can give to our audience about crafting the resume? Because we know that there are so many studies out there that say you're going to only review the resume for a few seconds. So what can the job seeker do to grab your attention when they craft your resume? Jo, you want to kick us off?
Okay, so my recommendation is that you economize on the top half of the resume. So you just need your name. If your name isn't Heather Thompson or John Smith, I would recommend putting U.S. citizen right after that, just to make that very clear, or authorized to work in the U.S. for any employer. If you have a clearance, put that up there, and then you just need one line that has phone number, email address, and LinkedIn address. Then you'll have the actual title of the job that you're applying for, and then you have a few phrases of what, why you feel like you really are the person for the role, and then put your key qualifications or core competencies, like in maybe 3 columns of bullet points where you are articulating the things that you are going to be required to do in that job that you actually have phenomenal expertise in. And when I see that you've got the qualifications that I'm specifically looking for, that's going to give me the ability to drop down into the rest of the resume to look at it. I also think that you should align all of your dates of employment, so that if we have to have somebody and they minimally need 5 years doing something, I need to be able to count the months and years on the side. So it just makes it a lot more efficient and gives us the ability to spend a lot more time with your resume and being able to dig for the things that are relevant.
Wonderful. So Vanessa, can you tell us a little bit more about what you need to see in a resume for someone to attract your attention?
Absolutely. Like Joe mentioned, the timelines, that's very important for us because, a lot of our jobs have a minimum of, this many years of experience. I apologize about my dog eating right now. And the summary, just kind of a brief overview of what you've done, how many years you have. If I see that you meet the years of experience there, then I automatically go down and just verify that the timeline matches up. If you are a prior if you're a veteran and you used to be in the service, it's also important for some of our jobs to kind of know what MOS you held, because a lot of our current positions kind of are based off of certain MOSs. So for any veteran, putting your MOS on there and when you graduated is also helpful.
Wonderful, thank you. And Michael, what can you tell us? What grabs your attention?
So I like keeping resumes simple. I think everything on a resume is fair game for a recruiter, for a hiring manager to ask about. So in the context of, somebody might not be looking at it a long time, don't make it overly dense. Give yourself a chance to explain the work you did, make it clear so that anyone reading it can understand what you do. All the details, if you have a clearance, your location, your LinkedIn, your mission with the job you're applying for are very important details to have in there. Make it clear. Don't make recruiters and hiring managers hunt for information. Obviously, don't go too big or too bold or too extravagant, but simple sometimes has its value. Resumes are a tough craft. You can view them as a personal narrative of your professional life and goals. So it should be something you look at pretty often. If you're happy in your job and you're not really looking, every couple of months, it's fair to go look at your resume. Make sure it doesn't look like it's from 1990. We're in a different time now. We have different terms of experience to look at. And one thing that I do personally, and I tell candidates, I tell my teammates, is if you were hiring for your own business and you looked at your resume, are you somebody that you want to interview? Are you somebody that you want to hire? Without talking to somebody, is this grab my attention of like, I could talk to this person about, this role that was applied for. So there's a lot of different factors that go into a good resume, but having it clear and concise and understandable are the big ones that I would do, and utilize resources that you have. When you're talking to at a hiring event, when you're talking to recruiters online, on LinkedIn, whatever it may be, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. What do you like about my resume? What do you don't? Take as much feedback as you can and make it your own, so that when a hiring manager does ultimately see it, they're seeing the best process of you. It can be tough. It can seem time consuming, but a good resume, once you have it pretty crafted pretty well, can go a long way.
Sounds great. Well, we actually have run over our time allotment for today. So I want to make sure that everyone in our audience knows that Vanessa, Jo, and Michael will all be part of our May 6th Mid-Atlantic Virtual Job Fair. If you're interested in talking with any of them, please do register at ClearedJobs.Net. My thanks to Vanessa, Jo, and Michael for your time today. I appreciate you all being willing to get on StreamYard, be on LinkedIn Live, and really give all of our job seekers a great opportunity to learn more about you. So thank you, everyone, for a great day, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye, all.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.